thing I don't do is cook, and tomorrow morning, Saturday morning, I'm going to the Ronald McDonald House to cook breakfast. Oh. Anyways, it's fun volunteering. If you folks don't do it, I suggest, find a charity and do some volunteer work. It's very rewarding. I'm Kathy D. Peri, and I started a new mortuary about a year ago. It's called South Coast Family Funeral Services in Costa Mesa. But I've been in the business a long time. I've been part of this group for a long time. And last week, Terry said, Kathy, all the years you've talked, if I lose somebody, I don't know what to do. Oh. So, and yes, that's true. That probably is very true. So what I thought I'd do is kind of walk you through if you lose somebody. Now, there's several variables. We're going to talk today about losing somebody. Let's say they've been in the hospital for a few days. If they die in an emergency room, it's a little bit more complicated. If they die from an accident or homicide, that's more complicated. So today, they died at the hospital. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to call me. That's it, call me. No other thing else, I'm going to direct you. But let's say you don't call me. The first thing to expect is the hospital is going to require a signed release. Either you get the release from the mortuary or you get the release from the hospital. I like to do both because when we go pick up a body, chances are the release that you signed at the hospital, they have lost it. So, it's true. The right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing.
At least they didn't lose the body.
So, I had that happen the other day. Most hospitals will give you up to 48 hours to select a mortuary. Now, if you have a loved one under hospice, follow what the hospice has to say completely. You will have already made arrangements by the time your loved one dies. But back to the hospital, most of them will give you about 48 hours to find a mortuary. Once you decide on a mortuary, do not just walk into the mortuary because chances are they're going to ask you to set up an appointment. Make it easy on yourself. Call first. Set up an appointment. That'll also give you a chance to discuss with your family what you want. Do you want cremation? Do you want burial? Big difference, especially big difference in price. So a couple things you have to think about. Do I have the finances? What exactly do I have? Does mom or dad, whoever dies, have the finances to, let's say, pay for a burial? Cremation, I charge $7.95. Burials, some places will charge like $15,000, $20,000. You go to Pacific View, that's even more. So you have to make a decision. A lot of times we'll have families come in and, they only have $2,000, but they want everything. And, unfortunately, you just can't have that. So what I've done is I'm going to pass this out. Take this, and it's an idea of what needs to be done after the time of death. When you schedule an arrangement appointment, you're going to go in, and one of the first things they're going to do, the funeral director, they're going to ask you information for the death certificate. So, how many of you have a trust? That's it? I want the rest of you to give Mark. It's really important. Give Mark a call. Yeah, because
I love that woman.
This information, there's some of the things you can't fill out, but most of it you can. This information, you need to have it with your trust. It's for the death certificate. It's what we do when we work with our families. When you come in the office, I'm going to ask you, do you have a religious preference? Because there are some religions that, of course, have traditions. There are some religions that don't believe in cremation. And that's hard for a family that can't afford anything but to get over that. So we might make arrangements to have them meet with whatever type of clergy we're dealing with to at least kind of assure them that, it's okay. They're not going to go to hell for cremating instead of burying. Hey, if the money's not there, the money's not there. There's nothing you can do. We're going to help you. Contact your church, temple, whatever your faith is. Make arrangements for clergy. Set up date and time. Do not schedule your service before talking to the mortuary. Mortuaries are very busy sometimes. I am too, by the way. They don't always have a funeral coach available because of another service. And that can be a big issue. So you have to actually go along and coordinate with the mortuary instead of going to the church and saying, okay, Saturday is what we want. A lot of times families will come to us and they'll say, well, we've already told our family the service is Saturday at such and such a time over at the Catholic Church. And I call the Catholic Church and they go, we can't do it Saturday. And they have families flying in, but they didn't bother to ask us. They didn't bother to ask the church. So make sure there's a lot of coordinating that goes on. Being a funeral director is almost like being an event planner. So that's something, if a wedding planner has to do the same thing, everybody has to come together. I had a situation the other day where a gentleman, and I'm passing this information out for a reason, a gentleman died, lived with a gal for over 20 years, daughter was estranged, hated her father. Well, dad died, no trust, nothing, and the daughter is now in charge. Hates his girlfriend so much that whatever the girlfriend wanted, it's getting quite the opposite. We're cremating. And the daughter's comment to me is, I don't care what she does, she can throw it out, I don't care. But unfortunately, she's the next of kin, the daughter. The daughter is fully responsible. So what I'm doing is I'm passing out the order of kinship. That's real important because sometimes we'll have families come into the office and there might be, let's say, 7 kids. The oldest steps up and says, I'm in charge. This is what I say goes. No, not in the eyes of the law. It's majority rules. And we've had some real tough times over that one. That's why you need to have a trust. You need to have your health care directive. And the person that's in charge, who has the health care directive, by the way, is also financially responsible. Can be. So anyways, if you want burials, call me because I work with brokers that can actually find you a lower cost cemetery property. I'm also pushing El Toro, which is county property. There's Santa Ana, a lot less, and they're beautiful properties. So we're pushing that. For any of you that are military, burials are completely free. You still have to have your mortuary services. A mortuary's responsibility is to prepare the body for the disposition, whether it's cremation or burial. That's my responsibility to make sure it's carried out. If you go like to Riverside, you're only going to pay for the mortuary end of it. The property is completely free. Any of the merchandise that goes along with the burial is free, such as the marker and the vault. So, and we make arrangements. It's my job to schedule. You can't call Riverside and just say, hey, I want to bury my dad. You have to go through a mortuary because everything has to be scheduled. Hopefully soon we're actually going to have, I think, a VA cemetery one of these years over here in Orange County at the Great Park. So that'll be kind of nice for those of you that are in the military. Anyways, part of my responsibility is working on the death certificate. That's why I'm passing out that one sheet. It normally takes, about 3, 4, 5 days, depending on the doctor. The death certificate's all done online. We cannot cremate, we can't bury without approval from the state of California, which is actually our local health department. So the doctor has to give us causes for the death certificate, which can take time. And once we compile all the information necessary, then we file the death certificate, then I can do cremation or burial. So it's a little difficult. Takes some time. You just can't walk in and say, want to bury dad tomorrow. It's not impossible. We do that with our Jewish families a lot, but it is difficult. Everything has to kind of fall in place. Caskets, wide variety of caskets. You can get a casket for $595, you can get a casket for $1 million, just whatever you want. I'd prefer you come in and ask for that $1 million casket, that'd be nice. Anyways, are there any questions? I kind of threw all this at you, but read the information, actually it's good. For those of you that have a will or a trust, put that in there. By the way, if you have a trust, you have a will, the healthcare directive, don't put it in your safety deposit box. In time of death, sometimes they get locked. Have no way of knowing. Give it to a family member, give it to a friend. Have multiple copies so people know exactly what you want, and update it, because sometimes families want burial and then they decide, grandma decides she wants cremation. So that's not good enough. You have to have it in writing and then witness it. So are there any questions?
After the fact. It happens, we're not prepared, you go quick, you have a cremation, you end up with a box of ashes, and it registers on the death certificate where the ashes are stored. Mm-hmm. How do we legally take care of that if you move, if you later decide you want to scatter them?
You go.
Who do you get the contact?
If you want to scatter them and you want to use a professional service, it has to be refiled through the state of California. Go back to the mortuary that cremated. If not, you can call me. And it takes a day, $12 a day to just refile it. State wants to know every time you move your cremated remains. They want to know what you're doing with them. So, don't ask me, I don't know. No, I will tell you why. People throw them away. Many, many times when I was at that other facility, we used to get calls about that. I just found somebody in the trash, It ends up at the coroner's office.
Really pissed me off.
The case you talked about where the guy died and his daughter decided what would be done with his funeral, if he had filled out his papers, he could have made his girlfriend or anybody that he chose.
Yep. His girlfriend really is devastated, by the way, and the daughter's going, yes,
Yeah, I know, I gotta do
So you have to, I'm telling you have to do it because you never know. You can go get hit by a bus today, tomorrow. And then all of a sudden, you're in a mess. Let me tell you, you are in a mess.
I did it, that would be it.
No.
Run over by that truck.
Am I done? Anybody else? Any other questions? Call me. That's the easiest way, is to call me. If you have an issue, just you call my partner, call me. We answer our own phones, so anyways, that's it. Thank you.